Hey everyone, so we have a really fun conversation today, and I actually dare say it might actually be inspiring. So we have on stage with us Earl Banning. He's known on Twitter as Earl of Frunkpuppy. And when you learn more about the Frunkpuppy project, your first impression might be that this is kind of funny, it's a little bit of silly, but actually you'll come to find out that it's actually a really large movement that's happening, and it's got a great purpose. It's educating people about the transition to electric vehicles. So we're going to learn a little bit more about how this came about and where it is today. But we're also going to be talking to Earl about Tesla Bears, and their arguments. Which of the bear arguments is the most frustrating? Which ones of them actually have merit? And I've got a lot of questions to see what Earl's response would be in terms of how you defend Tesla and our positions regarding that. So if you're ready and you want to get just a little bit brighter about puppies and bears, this is the show for you. So let's get started. Hey, Earl, welcome.
Oh man, well, it's so great to be here. You know, I it's been a while since I did an interview, I think. So it's really nice to sit down, and of course, I'm a big fan of yours and watched your interviews. I liked them, except for the one you did with Kim, but that's fine. And I'm coming live today from my wife's Model X, so people can give me grief about that as well. But yeah, hello from Alaska.
Yeah, exactly. Hello from Alaska. So, right, I started this podcast just 2 months ago, and the very first people that I became friends with and got to interview is, Tesla Joy and Kim Paquette
Mhm.
and K10. You're kind of in my last group of people that I'm getting to know better. But Kim, very clear. Everybody knows I am Team Kim all the way. Just because I'm talking to Earl, don't
Well,
get
this
confused.
interview is over. Bye.
No. So, while Earl, most people come to learn more about you through Twitter. They find you as the guy that's very funny, got very thought-provoking tweets. You got these photos of puppies and frogs. I actually got to know you first in this Twitter space that you were hosting, and you had like 600 plus people there. And you had some of the bears as speakers. And I just loved the way that you had your rebuttal and you were very passionate. You exploded defending Tesla as potential for success. So, first question for you would be, which bear argument do you find to be the most frustrating?
Yeah, I mean, I guess frustrating can be so thinking about that question can be taken a few ways. So frustrating can be because it's frustrating to defend, and the other frustrating is just because it's a stupid argument that you've debunked a million times, and is so clearly just nonsense. So you know the nonsense ones, they're pretty endless, but anything about Tesla suddenly going bankrupt, or magically there's competition that's going to arrive and then no one will buy Teslas anymore, or the Teslas are terrible quality and nobody wants them and nobody wants to buy them. I mean, I find those types of arguments to be frustrating because uh, there's just a lot of numbers there, right? We have amazing customer satisfaction for Teslas. People who buy Teslas tend to buy another Tesla, and they're pretty brand loyal, which is kind of the best in the business. And then this fantasy of competition arriving, I mean, it has been endless with the car that was going to cause the bankruptcy, right? The iPace, the Taycan, the Bolt. I mean, there's just a new one, and so they just keep saying, "Well, the competition's coming," but they always forget that the competition has also already arrived. There's plenty of other EVs to pick from, but as Omar just posted the other day, like how some of the EV sales are down for these companies. So, how do you weigh that out with
Mhm.
suddenly? Somebody's going to make an EV and then everybody's going to flock to it. And that's been repeatedly debunked as you see Tesla just growing so fast. So, yeah, that gets a little bit frustrating. The other type of frustrating is,
Yeah,
when they kind of have a point.
yeah.
I've tweeted a lot about this lately, but that darn Roadster and the Semi, please just get those to market. No matter what you say to them, you have a great argument, and they'll come back with, "Well, where's the Roadster and the Semi?" It's like, those things. So that frustrates me because it's true. That has been endlessly delayed with very few updates, and it always seems like those things are just around the corner, especially the Semi. And I'll be happy when I don't have to at least talk about those. But we'll be on to the next product, right? Uh, Elon will be talking about a van or something else, and where's that? So it won't end. But I do think they have a point that he had this kind of grand. It was probably one of the best Tesla events. I wasn't at it, but when they rolled out that semi truck and then they rolled out the Roadster on it, I mean, how cool
Mm,
is that, right? And then those things
yes,
haven't really come to market. So I, kind of
sure.
begrudgingly have to be, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, I mean, so you've obviously were talking about the things that are most frustrating and then the ones that have merit. That was the next question I was going to have. But you've been doing this since 2018, right? Is it even
Yeah.
earlier than that?
Yep. Yeah, I'd say 2018. I, like
When
a
did you
lot of
first?
people,
Yeah.
hopped on Twitter mostly because if you're going to follow Elon, this is the place to be. So I just kind of threw together an
Yeah.
account and hopped on. Never expected it to go anywhere, but I had posted a video of my car parking itself in the garage in, I think it was June of 18. Had like no followers, and somehow Tesla picked it up, their account, and then Elon retweeted it. And I thought that was just
Okay.
normal, right? I was new to Twitter. I'm like, oh, cool, Elon's tweeting me, like whatever. But I didn't realize it was like really a big deal. And but what I quickly learned is I was attacked by bears. I was attacked by all these accounts saying that I was a paid
Mm,
employee, that
okay.
the video was doctored and it was fake, that my dog is running backwards in the video because I edited it. Now, that you don't know me very well, but if you knew
Wow.
anything about me and my editing skills, wow, I'm terrible at it. So the idea that I like faked a car parking in, like, my brothers were dying. They both did computers. Like, you could never do that. Like, you can barely work your iPhone. So, but it was shocking to me. Like, well, who are these people, and why do they have all these accusations? And I'm suddenly defending myself in kind of the same style I do now. And I then garnered some attention from some of the people who are fighting FUD online, and got in with their group pretty quickly, and just it was endless back then, and there was no block list, so we were interacting with these characters all the time, and it bothered me because I own the car and I loved it, and I authentically loved my car, and I just wanted to tweet about that. And then you had this, I
Mhm.
learned about this whole group of people that were just focused on tearing Tesla down. I'm sorry, did you hear that? I don't know how to change that. Sorry. Anyway, a
Mhm.
message came through, and it.
Heard it.
How do I
Oh,
fix
no, no.
that,
Did not
sir?
hear that. That's okay.
Oh, you don't? Okay, just me. Okay.
So that's okay.
Um.
It did not
So,
hear. We did not hear it. Yeah.
okay. Anyway, yeah, it was really, um, what do you want to say? Eye-opening or educational that these people really exist, and then for me to be personally attacked and accused of all these things um,
Mm,
bothered me. And then you would just see them spreading just total lies about the company. Now, it was a different story back then too, because Tesla could have gone under, and it was dicey with the
mhm.
Model 3 ramp up and everything. So I think they had a little bit of a point back then, but all of those points really fell apart, and so it changed over time. But anyway, yeah, that's.
Do you think that
Mm-hmm.
at that time, 2018, the shorts, obviously, Tesla had the largest short makeup ever of any company. Are their arguments more than better than what the Bulls arguments were? I guess to say that some people are accusing the Bulls of making up stories, and and they're the ones that are making the stories versus the bears. What's your take? Like, is it like obviously we all many of us are invested in the company, so
Hmm.
both whether you're a
Hmm.
bear or a bull, many of us are
Hmm.
actually tainted by the financial
Yeah.
investment. But which side is actually overstating the truth?
Yeah. I think early on, you really did have to have a lot of faith that Elon would pull this off, that they would somehow, that he would be the first car company to make it in however, 100 years or whatever. And it's going to be all
Mm-hmm.
electric. It's somehow going to be profitable. So there was definitely some faith there that, yeah, this guy's pretty special and he's going to pull it off. So I think the Bulls were maybe not firmly planted in facts. It's interesting if you go back and read older bear arguments,
Nice.
like Mark Spiegel, he's kind of a famous bear. If you read some of his earlier stuff, it kind of makes sense. Like, for Tesla
Mm-hmm.
to get to where Elon says they're going to have to do this, which has never been done, and he has the numbers to back it up. And he's right, like, wow, he would have to do that. The problem is Elon did do it, and they never really
Mm-hmm.
adjusted their thesis. So because Elon kind of seemingly pulled a rabbit out of his hat and made this company a successful, profitable business, they started to just lie about the numbers, that it's not really profitable. They're buying their own cars, or, they're owned by China now, or, I mean, it got really conspiracy theories. They're stealing their own copper. It was one of my favorite ones. Like, and that everything was just a stock pump, which was fair, and you could say that about some things now, like, well, maybe the Roadster was just a
Mm-hmm.
stock pump, which makes no sense. Like, what did that even do? But they just never really let go of that storyline. So, I mean, I joked a lot when they were announcing their factory in China. That was just a stock pump, and even when they started to build the factory, the shorts were calling some of the equipment
Mm-hmm.
the wrong thing. Like, this is really a crane, and it's not. Like, they were misidentifying machinery, and that it was all just like a big hoax, that Elon was going to pump the stock somehow and pretend to build a factory in China just to hold them off long enough until he could, like, exit, like, sell all of it and dump on the investors or something like that. But, as the factory got built, they continued this narrative, and then they basically pretended it didn't exist, right? Or they would say, well, it's only finishing cars. They're not really making, they move the goalposts, right? And now it's just, but the Bulls all along were like, very reasonably, no, he's building a factory and he's going to build cars there, which is what happened. And as that happened, um, Tesla became profitable. China's like a cash cow for them. And they just never really are able to fit those things in the narrative. The Model Y was also a stock pump. They had a whole thing like, this doesn't really exist. And they had all these close ups of the car and everything. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be one of the best selling cars of all time. And they always just hang on the new thing. Like, well, the Cybertruck is just a stock pump or whatever. So we'll hear about that. But you know, you also have to ignore that they are testing a Cybertruck. They're driving it around. There's more than one. There's been updates on it. The semi truck is driving around. It's hauling stuff. It's a little different than like Nikola, right, where they were just rolling things down a hill. Like, Tesla's really wants to build products, and they're building a product. And I think that whole stock narrative is silly
Yeah.
at this point. Um, but yeah, anyway, so
Yeah. It's great to talk to you about this because you're bringing all of us back to memory lane of what happened in 2018, 19, and 20. Many of us are forgetting that now, but you were there, you heard it,
yeah.
and you're under PTSD, bringing you back in. Sorry about that, but the one that you said that had the most merit was the idea that Tesla and Elon, he is just a liar. I mean, he's just talking about things and he pumps the stock and he's all that's what he cares about. So he does promise a lot of things, right? He talks about the semi,
Yeah.
the roadster, the 4680, the Cybertruck, FSD, robotaxi, and now he's talking about a robot. And all of this, people are saying, they just say that it's all just lies. But the quote that I love, I think was it Elon that said it, where he said that, you know, uh, Elon's the best at making the impossible late. So it
Yeah,
was impossible. And now people are complaining that it's late. Why isn't a robotaxi here yet?
yeah,
Well, it's impossible. It never happened in my lifetime. How come it's not here tomorrow? Why is it not here next month when he said
yeah,
it will be?
yeah,
It's like 5 years later. How come it's not here yet?
yeah.
But you're saying that that's a true thing. So what's our defense against that? Because like you said, it really is true. Many of these things I just named, the 6, 7 of them, they're all delayed.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think that from a financial perspective and from a stock ownership, like for me to think where's the stock going to go in the next few years, I don't need a robot. I don't need FSD. I don't need the semi truck. That's not going to be real
Yeah.
material either. What I need is for Tesla to build factories, make more cars, and the EV space is so tiny, and we forget that even in the Tesla community, the EV space is so tiny. People don't even know about EVs. There's people, they have no idea how EVs work. They don't know
Yeah.
about Elon Musk in that way. Like they're not ingrained in this society we've created here. And they are profitable. And for me, like a real changing moment is when they basically shut down the S and X line. So the S and X
Mm.
was their cash cow. That was it, right? That's all they had, and they were working on this Model 3. Fast forward a few years, now just with the Model 3 and the Y, they're profitable and not even barely selling the S and X while they're working on new products. So to me, they made it. It's clear they made it. They don't need these other things. They could continue in this trajectory of building more factories and building more cars, threes and Ys, and maybe they change it and update the exterior one day or do something. But they would be just fine and profitable and no worries at all. Now, the icing on the cake, which is where I think even the bulls, we've been caught before too, maybe even underestimating what the stock could do, is if you think Elon can pull this off. So he did it before, right? He's going to make this profitable EV company. Very unlikely. Somehow he pulled it off later than he wanted, but he did pull it off. Um, if you start to factor in robots, FSD,
Mm.
what the 4680 cell is supposed to be, and the Cybertruck everywhere, they're going to be in pretty good shape, if they can do those things. And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to look at Elon's history and think that he's just going to quit on this at some point. Like FSD, very briefly, I was so dumb, I tuned into this Twitter space, and they were basically saying that Elon knows he can't do FSD, and he's bringing down the whole industry. Um, like, what? Why would he?
Really? Is that what they're saying?
There's so many plot holes to that make no sense. But I believe he does think he can do this. And, in driving beta since
Mm-hmm.
2020, I think they're going to get there too. No, it's not on Elon's timeline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, but nobody's surprised. I think that's what the Bears mislabel the Bulls too, is that they put us all in a basket that we somehow believe every single thing that Elon says. And sure, there are some people, but most don't.
Right.
I mean, when the Cybertruck was released, and I was at the event, and they gave the dates of when these things came out, there wasn't a person next to me that was like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait for the Cybertruck to come out." All of us were like, "Well, it's going to be delayed," and it's that,
That's it.
Same with FSD when he's like, "Oh, it's going to be out at the end of whatever year." There are very few bulls that are like, "That is 100% true. He will definitely have that, and if he doesn't, he's a liar." Most bulls are extremely skeptical of timelines. We just believe he'll get there eventually, and that's kind of where I am with FSD. Is it going to be this year? No. I mean, he said it's this year. I don't think so, but if it is, great, and I'll be surprised. But I don't think he's going. The guy is so competitive, and he's not going to quit. And he said he's going to do this,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to keep at it until he gets there. Whether that means with the current setup, or even if they have to trash it and do all new cameras and everything, like He's going to get there, no doubt about it.
What's your argument or thought on? I think the biggest bull argument is that Tesla's worth, its market cap, it's 10 times bigger than Ford, GM, and you add them
Mhm.
all up together, and Tesla's market cap is way higher than that. They're just a car company. That price for Tesla stock is overpriced. Is there truth to that? Is there some merit to the fact that why would you value this company whose 90 plus percent revenue is still just cars?
Mhm.
Why would you value it 10 times higher than the other ones?
Yeah, and the financial folks on Twitter that are smarter than I am, I think lay this out better than I could here. But like I said, with the three and the Y, the margins on those cars, and then when I think about how Elon keeps talking about manufacturing, and you look at what they're doing, right? They have the structural battery pack. They have less, parts that they're putting together with the stamping and everything. And then even the Cybertruck, which again I think will exist, that thing is made for profit margins too. Whereas it's the way that it's shaped, it's for ease of being able to construct it, and then it'll also have structural pack. I'm sure you don't even paint it. It's just all about cost cutting. Now, I think the secret sauce, and this, I think that the robots are easier and lower hanging fruit than FSD.
Hmm?
Because FSD has to be super safe. You have to get regulatory approval to like let this thing loose everywhere. And for the robots, now maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there's just a lot less red tape to have robots to construct and use them in a different way. It's like really, it's like a fancy factory robot, So I think Elon's goal is to have these
Yeah.
robots, ease of construction. Then you need people, but the people are going to be robots eventually, and we'll still
Yeah.
have lots of Tesla workers. But I think that their margins. This is going to be the next step in the automotive industry, where we have these production lines and robots, but we still have a lot of people. And I think what Elon sees is a whole ton of robots, faster construction, and then cars that are made to be constructed very easily. And if you put those things together, the margins are already industry beating. Everybody would love to have those margins. Now, would I value Ford or GM or these other companies to be worth as much as Tesla? No. They have dealerships to deal with, which I think is a huge drag. They survive on service, and EVs don't have most of the parts that they service. Um, the dealership model is a middleman, so that's going to drive up prices in the end for customers. They also have a ton of debt in various ways. Now, I
Yeah.
realize some of that debt is indifferent, but I worry about them. If the ICE car market collapses eventually, what does that mean for their leases and everything else? Um, and their expertise equipment is all in. We're experts at making ICE cars. We're experts at constructing ICE cars. Well, what happens if you switch to EVs, to all that equipment and all that knowledge? It's worthless. You have unions in many of these places. I'm very supportive of unions. I think unions are wonderful. I think that
Mhm.
we do need to support workers. However, when industries are in the process of being completely reorganized and completely changed, unions can slow that down. And when you have a guy like Elon running ahead, who is, he's so far ahead, um, then you have to play catch up. But first, you have to make sure that you're going to keep your unions happy. And that's going to slow down the auto industry too. And we've seen them make promises over the years. And we've also seen unions push back when they're trying to switch to EVs. So there's a lot of headwinds for industries, and it usually doesn't work like that. When an industry has changed, usually there's a lot of losers and there's a few winners. I feel like you're
Yeah.
in a way better position if you just make EVs. And you're already profitable at doing that, you're in a pretty good position. Now, if you're trying to come into this game late,
Yeah.
and switch from ICE
Yeah.
cars and do all this stuff, your hands are tied because Elon can come out, he can make the Model S or the Cybertruck and just say this is the best vehicle you could buy, right? You can't do that if your business relies on selling gas F-150s. You can't come out and say
Mm.
this Lightning is superior to everything that we make. It's wonderful, right? Well, what about all of your F-150s? You have to sell them. You have to profit off. You can't cut yourself off at the knees, right? So you either have
Yeah.
to make a vehicle that's not as good as your bread and butter, or you have to downplay how good it is because you're going to be selling these things a long time. So you'll watch CEOs of other companies toe a really fine line in how much they brag about their EVs. Usually they just target it at Tesla,
Yeah.
that this is better than Tesla and
Yeah.
we're going to, they have this magical view that somehow they are going to just keep their ICE business and then add in this new EV era. But the huge problem with that is that Tesla is taking sales from the ICE industry. They're not, this isn't the same six
Yeah.
people buying EVs, right? This industry is growing, it's growing fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're easier to construct, they're cheaper, they have less maintenance. Like this tech will win eventually. And you know, then where does this leave the legacy auto players? And so they can talk a big game, but they still have to limit what their goals are. And Elon doesn't. And the other thing that Elon has is he can go up there and really talk about climate change. He can go up there and talk about clean energy because that's what their business is. That's what their mission
Mm.
is. If you're the
Mm.
CEO of say Ford and you're up there talking about how bad you know climate change partly affected by
Mm.
gas cars. By the way, we're going to make a few million of them this year. We don't want you to
Yeah.
think about that too much, but we're going to throw in a couple
Mm.
EVs, it's not a very clean message. So you'll see
Mm.
them really dance around the climate change issue. And it's that coherent mission, in addition to Elon's kind of cult of personality, but I think that really leads to this huge Twitter community and fans, at least in this space. But there are a whole bunch of forgotten Tesla people that they don't do Twitter. They don't really give a crap about Elon. They just want an EV, and Tesla has become the legacy
Yeah.
EV maker. I won't throw him under the bus, but I just had a whole message back and forth with a Ford owner, a Mach-E owner, and he's like, "Well, look, I value your opinion, and you've always been pretty nice to me. So I'm thinking of getting rid of my Mach-E because he's unhappy with it. He's unhappy with it for
Mm.
a variety of reasons, and
Mhm. Mm.
Ford isn't really. They don't know how to service them, and he's just not sure about it. But he said his reasons to move to a Tesla, which he has argued with me online, is because Tesla only does EVs, and he figures that their service isn't perfect, but they know how to do electric
Yeah.
vehicles. And it just kind of dawned on me, like, yeah, Tesla's a new player, but they're really kind of the legacy EV player, and they only do legacy serve or they only
Gotcha.
do EV service. So they're kind of the experts and are even drawing in people that maybe you wouldn't think you would draw in. Yeah, I'm sitting in my wife's car today. She's not an Elon fan at all. She does not like him for many
Mm.
reasons.
Mhm.
Um, but she's like, I just
Yes.
love the cars. And if we got another car, if she got another car and it was an
Yeah.
EV, I guarantee it'd be a Tesla.
Yeah, it's gonna be Tesla. Yeah, so earlier we were talking about why is the market cap of Tesla so high, and it depends on how you view what Tesla is, right? So if it's just a
Yeah,
car manufacturer and it produces cars and it sells cars, then you can go and figure out that argument, which we can defend because, like you said,
yeah,
electric vehicles is only 2% of all global sales, and Tesla is basically, can really just grow just that. But if you look at Tesla as a manufacturing company, that their real product is the factory. And you touched on it earlier, their ability to create gross margins, and they've really focused on manufacturing. And then the encumbrance that the OEMs have with, people always think that the existing factories that the OEMs have, they're already producing millions of cars. Like Toyota can do 10 million cars a year. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we'll just make 10 million EVs. Then you're dead. You only make 1 million. You're going to be discovered, in the
Mm-hmm.
dustbin of history. But that's not what's happening. The factories that they're using and building is actually their product, Tesla's product, and they're very efficient. Um, and then
Yep.
from there, right, you're just like, what? Right. I mean, so I guess one of the biggest issues, I guess, is quality issues. I mean, it kind of hampered this image of Tesla, unfortunately, because the 2018, but every car had this issue.
Yeah.
What's your answer to Tesla's build quality? So even though the factories are amazing and they produce this, manufactured with all robots, how come there's this lingering argument by the bears that Tesla cars just have tremendous build issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first of all, when I bought my Tesla in 2018, this isn't the first car that I bought. I have owned a variety of cars, which have had all kinds of problems with them.
Right.
I had, I
Right.
bought a Ford Explorer way back in the day, and it would leak water from the top. And if you put too much weight in the back, for some reason the radio would turn off. I mean, it was
Hmm.
like a total piece of shit. Sorry, which I got rid of as soon as I could. You know,
Mm.
one of the reasons that I am sitting in a Model X right now is my wife was once again arguing with Toyota service about her Toyota Highlander, which had problems,
Mm.
and just trying to get her service contract for them to accept it. Every time she'd go in, it was like an argument. And she texted me from there because I'd been bothering her about getting a Tesla. She's like, you know what, order it. I'm done. you know, so she got a Model X
Wow.
because
Is
of
that what happened?
terrible Toyota service and the quality of that car that needed work. We had a Volvo for a while that was in the shop more than I owned it. It was in there because half of the engine blew and they had to fix that, and then they needed something else. Now, they were nice and they gave us really cool rental cars and everything. And when it was running, one of the best vehicles we've ever owned. I mean, my wife still talks about it. Beautiful, beautiful interior, great car, completely unreliable. Now, I
Mm.
do think there's kind of a concerted effort with Tesla being new to really exaggerate any kind of problems or complaints. And you would see this online. You would see, this would drive me crazy. You would see a brand new account that never tweeted about Tesla, and it would be some bizarro complaint about the car with lots of, and then suddenly every bear would find this and retweet it. And, and it was questionable. Like, did that really happen? Like, really, so part of it was completely made up. And then part of it is just the way the scores are made. So it'll be things like reliability, right? Like they have a low reliability score. But when they're talking about reliability, they're including things like your trim was crooked and they had to come and fix it, and it took 5 minutes, right? Like that's not when people think reliability, they think these things break down on the side of the road. But for the important stuff like the motors they build and the batteries and everything, like solid cars, great cars. There have been some problems, of course, like any car industry, but any car company. I mean, you saw like every Lucid was recalled, and like Mach-E had a huge recall. Rivian, there was a picture with the wheel fell off of it the other day. Like there are things that happen, but for some reason Tesla, like they've successfully built and continued a narrative. But how true is that? I mean, I'm here all the time. I talk to Tesla owners. Most people are extremely happy with their cars and find that most of the problems have been very minor or annoying. Um, Now, with that said, they should be doing better. There are cars that get out of the factory and you kind of wonder how things, like where's the quality control on this and stuff like that. I was lucky. My wife's X is perfect. I mean, it was wonderful. And my Model 3, I got it right before. they ramped up to that 5,000. Like there was like a lull where they like there were the very early ones which had some problems. Then they like hit a nice sweet spot,
Early
and
one.
then I got one of those, and my car
Yeah.
was awesome. And then after that, they ramped a lot, and then I know there were people who did have some things that like some quality issues, but um, I will say, and I hate to say this, but there is something to be
Mhm.
said about pressure and a PR campaign, because basically in China there were also some issues. They People just
Right.
didn't tolerate it. They were like shamed by the government, and I think they fixed it. I really think that they had to fix it, and I think they did fix it. And it appears, and I may be wrong, that the quality in China is spectacular and acceptable. I have not been seeing a bunch of stories about that. I think there are some limitations with Fremont, that they've run out of room and there's only so many
Yeah.
improvements that they could do. And I also
Mhm.
think that for whatever reason, U.S. buyers are just willing to tolerate this, me myself included.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I'll
I
deal
got
with
the
it.
Model.
Mm,
Yeah,
uh,
I got the Model 3 in 2020
mm,
from Fremont, and it's been perfect. I
yeah,
so kind of like
yeah,
my experience is that I've not had any issues that everybody's talking about. Absolutely, fine tooth
yeah,
comb.
yeah,
Is there a panel gap? Any issues? Nothing. And
yeah,
so far, I've had to bring it in to service 3 times. The reason is
hmm,
because two of them was accidents. Not our fault. My children were driving it, and not our fault. But and the third time was because of the 12-volt battery, which every car
yeah,
has an issue. But the
yeah,
service was brilliant. I was shocked because they first were going to do mobile service. Who does mobile service, right? Name me
right,
another company that will do a mobile service. Two, you communicate all day long, every day through the app. What a great way to keep
yeah,
me updated or for me to ask a question. I'm again very shocked with that. And then three, they told me to bring the car in and they gave me a loaner for a 12-volt battery. And then they decided, it's not just a 12-volt battery, that will be but we're going to fix the rear hatch also. And so they just threw that in and it was all free. I've owned many cars as you have. I've had a
yeah,
BMW, I've had a Toyota van, I've had a Volvo, and oh my God, I get scared all the time. I have to bring it into the service.
yeah,
And what are they going to charge me today? Thousands of dollars.
yeah,
And here
yep,
I bring it to Tesla and I feel comfortable. I know that they're only going to charge me what it costs. That's not their business model. I feel great bringing it in. And oftentimes it's either free or they for the service of the accidents. You know, it was minimal cost, thousands of dollars less than I was expecting if I had brought it to a body shop or something that to fix it after insurance. So,
yep.
yeah, I
No,
get the service is an issue.
yep. I mean, I
Mhm.
I've had the same experience. It's the best service I've ever had in my life. I mean, they've come to my work to fix some things.
Yeah.
They've come to my house to fix things. Um, One of my early experiences, I've talked about this before. My wife had a subarachnoid hemorrhage burst in 2018. I spent a lot of time in the hospital with
Right.
her. And one of the things I would do for my mental health, like I still had my brand new Model 3, right? Is because there were times there was nothing to do, so I would take a walk around the hospital. I'd walk out to my car and sit in my car, and it looked like there were a bunch of paint bubbles on the car. Um, I freaked out. I called service, and they wanted to set me up, and I'm like, look, I can't really go anywhere because I'm like at this hospital. They're like, we'll come there. Okay. So the service tech
Wow.
came to the hospital parking lot and checked out my car. He
Wow.
did everything. He's like, "Hi, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is okay. Um, so I'm going to get you a loaner." So he brought a Model S to the hospital, left it, took my car. They put it on a truck. It went down to Cincinnati. Um, and they got it there, and it was just some kind of like crap that was on the car. It wasn't even anything wrong with it. It was like it
You
wiped out. I'm
Pearl,
like,
you.
oh my
Kim's
God, I'm
gonna
so
come after
sorry.
you on this one.
like what a waste of time. But I was not in my normal mind at that time, and it just seemed like something. But the tech did
Gotcha.
check it, and he didn't think it was right either. I'm like, I am so sorry. So they bring my car back, and but just like who would do that, right? And then the other thing is
Right.
this is more embarrassing, and I've told this story, but when I got it home, I don't know, it may even been the day I brought it home. I backed it up, and it's new to me, and the car is beeping at me, and I thought that I was too close to the bushes, so I
Mm,
turned, but it was beeping at me because I was
mm,
too close to the house, and I hit my side view
mhm.
mirror on my hose reel. I cracked my hose reel. My mirror,
Yeah.
like, it
Mhm,
was catastrophic. It fell down, like it hit the camera part, it dented it and everything. This is my brand new Model 3. And so I
mhm.
scheduled service, and the guy came to my house, and he looked at it, and I had to order a side view mirror, which even though it was new, the part came in right away, and he put it on. It was supposed to be $400, and he's like, "It's okay." I think they felt bad for me because I messed up my car right away, but they put on a
What?
brand new
No
mirror for
way,
me
Earl.
at my house, free of charge. They didn't
Yeah.
know me from a can of paint, right? And yeah, so
Wow.
again, who's doing that for me? So that experience with
Who's
my
doing
wife in
that?
the hospital, and then my side view mirror, and then anytime I've needed anything, it's either been mobile. I have gone. I did go to Cincy once or twice. I had the ball joint issue, which was common in my car, which of course they fixed for free, and I did have the 12 volt, which I took it down for, which also wasn't a big deal because it came up, it popped up on the screen, and it said you're going to need to replace this. I went in, and they got me right in for service, and they fixed it. So that's like the worst thing that happens to the cars, I think, is the 12 volt. But it wasn't even a big deal, and of course it was free and it was covered. And
No.
no, I lied, it wasn't covered. I think I just went out of warranty. But anyway, if I ever buy something besides
Yeah.
a Tesla, it has nothing to do with the service, and I will miss. I don't think anybody can match
Exactly.
this, the service experience. With that said, yes, there are problems. I mean, I live in Alaska now. We don't even have a service center. There are areas of the country that
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
have them. I know in Europe there's some issues too. So I would be the last. I don't think that everybody says they have a service problem is lying. There are problems and room for improvement. However, if you sit back and you look at this company over the last few years and how they have grown exponentially with all these cars and all the superchargers they put in and all the service centers that they've
Yeah.
put in, of course there's problems. I still think they're doing it better than anybody else. I wouldn't want to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd take my stupid Forerunner in for an oil change. Nightmare. I got there, system was down. They were back to paper, so they had to like write down what my car had. Just a freaking oil change. I was there forever. They were friendly up here, but it was not a good experience by any means. And but
Wow.
last thing, before I left for Alaska, I took my car in just to be checked. I'm like, look, I'm bringing a Model X to Alaska. Please look at every single thing. They were so nice to me. I rode along with the tech. He's like, just trying, like, well, what do you need? And they had to order some parts and do some things. And it was a great experience. And you can tell the difference between a place that's for profit and a place that they will charge you at cost, and they do want to make you happy. And I really can't complain about the service. So back to your point, I do, yes, service could improve.
Yeah.
I think they're doing great for how much they grew. Also, it has been absolutely exaggerated in the media, where you have a lot of people
Mhm.
just like you. They're like
Yeah.
paranoid. You get your car and you're like, oh, it's perfect, right?
That's fine. Yeah. So I want to get to your personal story because you touched a little bit
Yeah,
on it, but just to wrap up the service situation consideration is that when you said it with the business model. So if you are an OEM and you create a car, then you sell it, and then there's this whole industry of garages and services, and even the dealership and their service model. They're there to make money, but they're one step removed. versus Tesla, they have to create that whole new industry of service. And so there's going to be issues for growth. But when you actually experience a service, they are there because they're touching the whole life cycle of the car, and they're not there to make the money on the service. And so when they learn that there's an issue, they're going to fix it on the manufacturing side of it so it doesn't become an issue anymore. And so it's this whole thing. And so it's going to take time for them to, and then the issues of growth, because they're growing so fast, because the cars are selling like crazy, the huge backlog, they can't get the parts. And so that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
concerns, or issues with service, is that you have to wait months for the parts to come.
Yeah.
That's a price of success for the company. So
It is.
you know
And also I
um
have to say that some of the loudest people complaining about service, you'll see them just go out and buy another
mm,
Tesla, right? Like they're not going anywhere. I don't
yeah,
think we're losing many people like, oh, this service. And
yeah,
for any issue I've had with Tesla, I drive the cars. I drove this for my commute today, and it's like, this is so superior to anything else.
yeah,
I've driven other cars, I've driven other EVs, I've looked at other EVs. These are just the best. And if I'm going to get a crooked piece of trim or some bullshit or wait, I don't care. I mean, it's not going to affect my decision to buy
yeah,
anything.
it's minor.
And I also see people
Yeah,
complaining online, and then you'll seriously see them order another Tesla because it's still the best car.
this is the best car. All right, so let's get to your personal story.
Yeah,
A lot of people probably tuned in because they wanted to hear your personal story, but I wanted to spend a lot of time on your knowledge
cool.
of the Bears and their arguments.
Yeah,
But that's I know that you have a very interesting, or very, I don't know what the right word is, I guess touching story of how this all came about. But few people actually know this about you. So can you just, if you don't mind, share a little bit about what happened to your wife and your life,
yeah,
and where did before we even get started there, where did you grow up, and what
yeah.
do you do, and yeah, how did you fall into all this?
Yeah, so every toxic person has a backstory, right? So I was born in I was born and raised in the coal country of Pennsylvania. My grandfather died of black lung. He was a coal miner,
Hmm,
and I never met him because he
okay.
was died well before I was
Yeah.
born. And he told my dad that, so back in the day, kids would work at the coal mines. This is before FSD beta was
Hmm,
hitting all the children.
hmm,
You're It was normal, like at the end of the coal line, kids could pick through it, like you could work there, right? And you'd pick through the coal and everything. And um my dad had a lot of trauma. A lot of coal miners died. You want to talk
hmm,
about the need for a union.
hmm,
These people needed a union. Mines would collapse. There was no real health care for it. There was no, I mean, it was just
hmm,
terrible. The working conditions were terrible, but it was a great way to move up. My great grandparents were from Germany and came over here, and then my grandpa worked in the coal mine, so it was really upward mobility. And worked his butt off, died early of black lung. And but my dad, he told
hmm,
me, this was towards the end of my dad's life, that he would lay awake at night, and if his dad came home, if his
hmm.
dad was late, that meant somebody died because they had to deal with the body and everything. But he never knew when it was going to be his dad,
Yeah.
and he didn't. Like, he retired from there. He did die of black lung eventually, but it was really a scary time. So my grandpa told my dad that if he ever caught him in the coal mines, he'd break his leg, and if he came back, he'd break his other leg. So
Wow.
my dad had a long career as an accountant, was never a coal miner. But me growing up, I watched the horrors of the coal industry because entire towns were built around it. Entire towns were built around coal. And then out west, they had easier ways of getting the coal. So coal mining in
Hmm,
Pennsylvania, coal region Pennsylvania dried up, and the profits never came to that area. All the profits for all the coal industry went to the cities and everywhere else,
hmm,
and they literally just left these towns to die. There's, all the industries just dried up and left, and the area is very depressed to this day. Um,
hmm,
so I see kind of, I've seen the advantages of fossil fuels and things that we needed in coal
Right.
because my grandpa, who had black lung, he did not go to World War II because they needed coal miners to mine the coal. Like that was part of, supporting
Oh, I
America.
see.
And it was really upward mobility for that whole area, which, helped my dad and his job. And then, of course, I was able to do things and grow up differently than my dad did. But I also saw how they treated people who had illnesses from the coal industry, how they could just pick up and leave an area. It's kind of like, the areas around Michigan and stuff, where, car companies close. And, these coal companies didn't really give back to the community and just left. And the areas are really depressed and have caused a lot of pollution over the years. All the burning of all that coal that is ripped out of Pennsylvania is now
Yep.
contributing to global warming, and who pays for that? Um, so that's where I'm from, and grew up, got the hell out of there like everybody. I don't know many people that I grew up with that live in coal region Pennsylvania, and graduated college and ended up in the military, which is what I do now. And so my wife, uh, yeah, uh, yeah, I'm not much of a worrier. My wife is, she's can be a bit of a hypochondriac, and was never worried about this. We were never worried about an aneurysm, and was at the gym one day lifting weights and had this pop and felt like she was
Mm.
drowning. She called me. I'm a
Mm.
neuropsychologist, so she told me her symptoms. I said, hang up and call 911. Before she left the gym, by the
Mm.
way, like any good wife, any good woman, she cleaned up her stuff, which men can't do. But she's in the middle of having an aneurysm and still was like, well, I better clean up my equipment. So she goes out to the car, calls me,
Wow.
calls the ambulance. They take her in, and it was bad. It was if you know anything about the brain, like
Yeah.
the basilar artery where it forms at the top and it kind of branches off, is a notorious place for aneurysm because there's a lot of pressure there that's kind of where the blood goes. And if you have an aneurysm there, it's really bad because it's around a lot of like life things that are important for life, your
Mm.
breathing and like everything, it's like all that basic functioning stuff. So if that bursts, it pools blood in that area and people die. Like only about half the people even make it to the hospital. And
Wow.
then of the ones that make it to the hospital,
Mm.
of that 50%, about a third of them die at the hospital. A third have severe disability, and then a third make it. So the odds are not in my favor. So they told me about it. I said goodbye to my wife, as they told me to do. They did
Wow.
an angiogram and life-saving surgeries, and she pulled through. And she does not have disabilities. She has some lasting effects, but nothing major. And um, but it was a very life changing experience to be faced with death that way and really to see how fragile life is that could have lost her in
Mm.
a minute. And we're very lucky that she got to the hospital and had a great brain surgeon and everything and saved her life. Um,
Mm.
so I had just gotten my Model 3 in late May 2018, and she had her aneurysm in July of 18. So I was on top of the world. I got my car. I'm online.
Mm.
Elon's retweeting me. I'm like doing videos. Norman's driving my car, my dog. And then this happened. And I just wanted some more positive things in my life. So, going online and then seeing all these bears, like, crapping on Tesla, it's fine. And I'll argue with them. But I wanted something a little more positive. So I started to think about, um, like, I love dogs. How can I include dogs in Teslas? What can I do
Mm.
about this? So I spent a lot of time in the hospital, probably sleep deprived, not functioning well
Mm.
emotionally. And somehow during one of those times, I was thinking of words like, and then I came up with this frunk puppy word. And I thought, well, when I get home, I'm going to put Norman in the frunk
Mm.
and take a picture and then
Mm.
basically harass everybody to do the same thing. And that's what I did in August. Um, August 18th, I think I took the picture, put Norman in the front, shared it online. It didn't really go anywhere, but I just kept bothering people. Like, yeah, a couple people did it, but not nothing really
Really?
major. And
Okay.
somehow it just started to get legs. And Trevor from Model 3 Owners saw it, and he put his cat in the front, Nutmeg. It was a wonderful cat, and he had a huge audience. So then people is on the radar. So people started to do this, and I started to vote on the best ones. I would just pick the best ones every week. I would find the pictures and
Yeah.
do this vote on my own. And then by October, May Musk said she's going to do it, and she did it. May Musk put her dog in the front, um, and then it just blew up. Then it was just like a worldwide thing. So I was getting pictures from like Taiwan and China, like just it was amazing to me. It just really blew up all over the world, Europe and all over the U.S. People are just doing this stupid thing, and I was always waiting for it to end. But like it warmed my heart because this is what I wanted, right? Like people are sharing like these adorable, amazing pics of dogs and frogs, and people are having fun with it and being creative with it. And we're like voting on the top dog. Like it's all so dumb and but like really fun. And sometimes I use it for charity. You see, from time to time, I'll do like GoFundMe's and stuff, like kind of around my account and around Frunk Puppy. We've had rescues and stuff in Franks, or like the SPCA won the one week because they had the frunk full of
Nice.
puppies. And it just felt very lighthearted and very positive. And my hope, which it continues to work out, is that it wouldn't really be a Tesla thing, which there's so many Tesla EVs, but I just wanted to raise awareness for EVs. So, now you see Rivians, and
Yes.
the F-150 is a natural. You see a lot of F-150s with front puppies and stuff. And just spreading awareness that, there's no engine up front, and you can put your dog in there, and like sharing that experience and making it like very fun and lighthearted. Lucid did it. They tagged Frunk Puppy and did one. Bollinger, if you remember Bollinger, they had a bunch of entries and won a bunch of times too. So it's really gone across brands, and I think is a very positive thing. I love it. I've always been waiting for it to end. Like, is this going to work this week? And then I don't know. Somehow, just every week, there's tons of pictures, and when I formed
Yeah.
a board, a
I was
Twitter
gonna.
group of people to help out
Mhm.
because it was too big of a task. There were times there's like 50 pictures
Yeah.
in a week, so I can't pick the best one. So we vote to get the top four, and then I release the poll on Twitter. But people like it. It's funny because if I'm late with it, I'm late now because I'm in Alaska. And people are like, "Where's the vote?" Like, oh, cool. Like you're looking for it. That's pretty neat. And so
Yeah.
it's a real
Like
blast.
I said earlier, that it sounds funny and silly, like you said, but actually it's pretty big. It's a really big purpose because my story was, when I first saw the very first Roadster that Elon showed in 2012, right? It's an electric vehicle car. Okay, exciting. What blew my mind was the explanation that there is no engine. Because there's no engine, we put in more crumple zones, so it's going to become the
Yeah,
safest car in the world. In addition to the very big electric battery at the bottom, you can't flip it. Because there's no engine, there's not going to be any service. The engine is the size of a shoebox. It doesn't have all these parts, and you just go through all the lists that OEMs have, and then just goes on and on. And it really was that frunk. The idea that the frunk is an extra storage space was funny for me, like big deal, who cares for me. But it actually represents kind of like the best entry point to an electric vehicle and the benefits of an EV. So for me, that was one
yeah,
that blew my mind away, and that got me
yeah,
so excited about electric vehicles
yeah.
you know
No, you're spot
and
on.
so
And
I think that what you're
yeah,
doing with yeah, the puppies on the front, it brings that conversation about what is a frunk, why is it a frunk, electric vehicles have this, why, and then it generates the knowledge of what an electrical vehicle is,
yeah,
and in a fun way with the puppies and all that. So what I mean, like it's
yeah.
a very cool, viral, fun thing to discover, and very important thing.
Yeah, and I agree with
Yeah.
you too. Like to me, the frunk really encapsulates so much about an EV. And you're right, like the crumple zone, all that stuff. The fact that there is a space there, and then it's shocking to people. Like I said, I'm from Coleridge, Pennsylvania, and there's a small amusement park there. And I was, unloading my kids and had the frunk open, and somebody like slammed on their brakes. They were going down the park and was like, "Where is the engine?" It was like some, very older local that was like shocked. Like he was almost
Yeah.
angry that there was no engine. Like what, And like I'm like, no, this is the front. Like this is where there's the engine. There's no engine like that. There's an electric motor. He was shocked and just floored, and it really set in for me that like there's a whole bunch of people that they just have no idea. It's not like they're not buying an EV because it's not
Yeah.
practical or like they don't like Elon or all this other stuff. They just don't know about them, and they don't know that they're people own them and drive around in them every day. And to me, the front was a real way to you know, to speak to that. And what's better than like some puppies? Now, I have gotten some hate mail over time. Like people have tagged PETA, like
Mm.
because I'm like, you're a
Yes.
monster for putting dogs in a frunk and driving them around, and stop telling people to do that. I'm like, no, no, you're doing it wrong. Like you never close the frunk. I wouldn't do that. But yeah, it's happened from time to time, which it makes me laugh. But yeah, just
That's
for a
hilarious.
picture, just
All
for a
right, so
picture.
yeah, you did this. It started to blow up. What was your Twitter account at that point? How did you who were the very first people that you became friends with? And of course, I need to ask you about your frenemy relationship with Kim Paquette. Team Kim over
Yeah,
here will always stay
yeah,
Team Kim.
yep. Well, some of the earliest people were Kim, and which I'll come back to. But
Tell me about that. Tell me about how you guys met.
Lisa,
Yeah.
Steve Hamill. Gosh, there's so many. David McLeod. Yeah, there's a whole bunch that I just kind of got in with early that I continue to admire, and are just wonderful people in the Tesla community. Kim, well, so I was in this group of all these FUD fighters, and she I noticed one day by accident, like we all followed each other, but she didn't follow me. And I'm like, what,
Okay.
like in my very dramatic way was like, what is this about? And then like, so we started bickering about this. I don't remember. I think she just didn't follow me like for no reason. And
Right.
so I made a whole
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
about it, right? Like for months, like, oh, well, Kim doesn't follow me and all this stuff. And but we were pretty good friends, and this is one of the first people I talked to on the phone from the Tesla community. I can't
Mm,
remember why, but we ended up speaking. And but
mm.
I've always appreciated her humor, and then it's so fun to battle back and forth with her. She's one of my favorite people on there, and um, yeah, it's just kind of continued. She's just so darn good at it.
She is very good at it. She owns
She's
you
very
all
good.
day, every day.
All day, all day. I absolutely love it. But yeah, when I went to the Cybertruck event, I finally got to meet her in person, and we hung out a lot there. And I was actually next
Yeah.
to her when the Cybertruck rolled out, um, which was
Nice.
funny because we watched the windows get smashed together. But yeah, no, what wonderful person. But yeah,
All right, I've got the hardest question I'm going to ask you
okay, I'm ready.
the entire interview. It's going to be pretty hard. How many puppies can fit in a cyber truck?
Well, so here's this. This is a great question. I think first of all, I think
You're going to treat it seriously. I love it.
the F-150 will probably always be the puppy frunk winner. The way they designed that thing, it's enormous. So I think the Lightning is probably going to be maximum puppies in the frunk. The Cybertruck, I'm a little nervous because the only picture of the frunk is a very blurry one. You have to really zoom in on,
Oh,
and I hope they don't cancel the frunk. Like I hope there is a frunk in the Cybertruck.
yeah.
Um, I assume it will be the biggest frunk of any Tesla. Probably even bigger than the semi truck because of the way that thing is shaped. I don't. It has a frunk, but I don't think it's really huge. But I don't know how many puppies could fit in there. I'm gonna go with 15.
15. Okay. We
Yeah.
have to have puppies on the Cybertruck. It's the whole thing will just break if there's no puppies in a Cybertruck. Well, you can do the
Uh,
trunk, you can do the back.
yeah. The future popularity of Frunkpuppy is highly dependent on a frunk in the Cybertruck because it's going to be so popular and it's such a natural fit. Like people who own trucks own dogs, and if you can
Yes.
fit
Yeah.
really
Big
big
dogs.
full size
Yeah.
dogs in that thing easily, there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot, and the farm animal will be, we just had a goat winter, so I'm sure people will
Yes,
be
I saw
putting all
that.
sort of livestock in their Cybertruck as well.
I'm gonna have to tell
But
Elon that he needs to put one in.
it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I keep asking him to put a dog
All
in
right.
the
Well,
semi frunk, but
it will happen. Don't worry, it'll happen. He
yeah,
put his dog right, Floki. That happened.
yeah,
So, why did you move to Alaska and all this no
mhm,
supercharger? And why would
yeah.
somebody who's such a Tesla fan? What's the reason you
And
moved to Alaska?
yeah, so I'm in the military, and they tell me where to live, and this is where they told me to where to live, and so I came to Alaska, and it's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you can. There are a lot of Teslas here. There's like a owners club of 700 people, but um, my issue was trying to
Really?
drive. Yeah,
Okay.
my issue was driving here because sorry. My issue was driving here because I had to come up the Alcan, which is up through northern Canada, and there's no, the superchargers end,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're just on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue is I had no problem being a two EV owner in Ohio. We drove everywhere, no
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's not like that here. I mean, there's one supercharger currently, and when you think about the winter and not many, just like off-brand chargers, you can get places. People can do it, but it's like not like with your family. We're gonna go do something and then charge for
Mm-hmm.
5 hours. Like it's not really conducive to that kind of environment. And I didn't want to be limited. Yeah, since I have to live here, I want to see everything. It's a beautiful state, and there are just
Yeah.
things you just unfortunately need a gas car for. So we made the tough decision um, to do that and to get rid of my Model 3. But I don't know. Every
Oh,
day that passes, I'm like really wanting to get another one. Like I was so excited to bring
yeah.
my wife's car to work today, and it just reminded me of how much I liked my commutes in Ohio because I just did FSD the whole way, and it was
Yeah.
a really great experience. And now I'm, you know, recklessly driving my Forerunner, but
So I'm
it's
shocked that
fine.
there's 700 people there with Teslas when there's only one supercharger. That is significant.
Yeah,
Wow.
amazing community up here, and people really pushing to get chargers everywhere. I mean, you can get all the way to the
Yeah.
northern end of Alaska now, and all the way down to Homer and everything. So it's you can get places. I was just nervous. So without a service center, one charger,
Right.
and you don't even have a spare tire. And the roads here, sometimes you're going
Right.
along fine, and then it's just dirt and rocks. And I
Mhm.
didn't. I don't feel safe doing that. People will do that. If I was by myself, I would drive all over the state. But to take my family around, I'm gonna at least need superchargers. But I can drive. There's many places I can drive to and from. I went down to Seward, which is like a 2+ hour drive, and like there are places I can get to places. And I've taken the car. I always take my wife's car when I can.
What is
But
yeah. What does your family think about? What does your wife think about your obsession with Tesla, Tesla and Twitter and all your friends on
Oh yeah,
Twitter?
my wife is pretty embarrassed. It's funny. It's like a funny thing, but she does have like an emotional connection to Frunkpuppy because it's so much about her. Like what, like a
Mm,
positive thing out of a very
mm,
negative event. Um, but
mm.
she was in a Washington Post article with me not too long ago about how we argue about
I saw
Elon,
it. Yeah.
and
Yes.
so that kind of continues to this day where I'm a little more supportive of him. Um, my my kids used to think it's cool, but now they're like 13 and 10, and it's the point where dad is embarrassing about everything. So I don't know. It's a little bit
Sure.
hit or miss, but just
So just
continuing
like the way the
anyway.
Twitter
So
community looks at you.
yeah. See, it's like it's pretty much the same thing.
Uh, oh, that's hilarious. I mean, I have the same thing with my wife as well. Different views about Elon, and it's the reason partly is because they and again, I don't fault anybody, right? Because I also am trying to figure out where my position is on all this about Elon specifically.
Mhm.
And he doesn't make it easy. But if you are somebody
No.
just in the general public and you hear these things, you hear one side. And the thing about us who follow every single tweet that he sends out, you kind of see the context of how things are and why he's saying things and kind of that. And so that eases it a little bit for, his position politically or statements he's making. Sometimes he's just hilariously funny. He's just trying to make a joke, and
Yeah.
people go after him for silly things like that. But yeah,
Um, I see really bright things for Tesla in the future. I
mm,
think that the Cybertruck is going to be. I think the industry has fallen asleep on the Cybertruck because like a couple other trucks came out and they think
really,
like, this won't be a
mm,
big deal. It's going to be huge. They're going to sell so many of them, and we're going to roll out the Semi. And Elon
yeah,
is really hell bent on perfecting manufacturing. And maybe it's taking him longer to get there where he wants to be, but I think he's going to have incredible margins on these cars, and eventually they'll be self-driving too. It's a once in a generation thing. You'll never see. You'll never see this again, where a company like this guy grits it out, makes huge bets and huge promises, and makes this world changing company. Like we're just getting started. Like Tesla and SpaceX have already changed the world, but this is just the beginning. If you're talking about robots and autonomous cars, and then getting into that trucking industry, semi trucks, and then combining autonomy with all that stuff, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm sure in his brain that we don't even know about yet. I'm very
yes,
excited to see where Tesla goes, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all noise. Like that's kind of why I push back against PR, because I think PR is just about short-term stock moves. Like who cares um, whether the government comes after Elon for FSD or there's different roadblocks on different things. It's not going to matter, and this is just all noise. Like it's going to happen. We're going to get there. That's why I don't buy and sell my stock, because it could go up and down based on lots of things. It could
yeah,
plummet again. It could go way up again too, as we've learned. Like even the most bullish bulls did not see that last run coming to the extent that it did, and people sold way too early. So I'll just buy and hold, knowing that the stock may be lower in the future, but I know it's going to be a heck of a lot higher eventually. And that I do have, I guess, I come back around to what I said in the beginning. I do have faith and belief that Elon is going to accomplish these things, and that's where I'm going to keep my money, and not worry about all these nonsense bear arguments. Like Tesla's here to stay, and it's only going to get better.
yeah. And now that you're in Alaska, you're like the perfect person to have a Cybertruck, and
I know.
hopefully you're connected
I
to Tesla,
agree.
and they'll like give you one. That's it. I can
I
market this for
agree.
you. I can test it
Yes.
for you. I can show it off, and I can have puppies everywhere, and you're going to be like the
Yep.
best marketing.
Yeah,
And
like
watch
beta
this
front
truck in
puppy testing
Alaska.
and
Yeah,
yeah, but you do need, I
yeah,
want that range. I want the promised range. And, if it has three or four motors or whatever they're doing, it'll just be a perfect beast for up here.
yeah.
It'll be an awesome. I think they'll way
Perfect.
more.
Yeah,
Give me a couple superchargers and a Cybertruck. I'll take my family anywhere. It'll be awesome. Can't wait.
yeah.
I
So
am so
yeah,
excited about the Cybertruck.
yeah. I know. I can see it. It's perfect for you. Let's get back to the Bears again. And so the
Yeah.
stories against the Bears has changed over time, and they're lessening and lessening because Tesla is able to prove and kind of defeat all their early arguments. I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of hatred for Elon, and in fact, that might actually have been growing, if not lowering. But
Hmm.
the Bears, what are the future arguments you think that they have, or is it done?
Well,
Are we kind of past that hump?
what is it like? Future, the past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. So I think we are stuck with the competition is coming forever. They will always be just about
Mm-hmm.
ready to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And at some
Good
point,
point.
demand will collapse for Teslas. To me, it's so silly. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Um, there will always be, Elon is such a lightning rod and such a unique character that there will always be a bear argument that he's going to either leave or collapse or get arrested or, like something wrong with Elon, that he leaves. So I think that'll be an ongoing bear argument. Um, I don't know. I don't know what they'll say.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sure at some point profits
They
will be
make up
bad
things. So
too, right? It'll be like, well, they have too much money. Oh, this is the one that's going to be. This is the one. Market share. We're going to hear about market share forever.
right.
So the EV space will
Yeah.
grow. Tesla, which would the
Yes.
market would collapse if Tesla continues at like 80%
Right.
whatever market cap. That means the EV market has failed, right? Like because no one else is helping.
Right.
So what the mission of Tesla, right, is that everybody switches to EVs. So if that happens, if the Elon really forces their hand and they have to make EVs, their market share is going to go down, even though their sales year over year is still going to go up 50%.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so you'll see a lot of. I think somebody wrote that happened to
Yeah.
Apple too, something about market share, but
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
like
for
a
exactly.
talking
Yeah.
point. It
Yeah.
doesn't affect the bottom line at all in a growing industry. But that will be hammered
Yeah.
home by the financial news too. Like, look at market share just dropped in Norway for Tesla. Even though they're doing fine, that will be living with forever. But and there'll be Tesla fans screaming over and over again. Like, oh, and here's the last
Yeah.
argument
Make.
will probably always be the January, usually January or Q1 is sometimes slower seasonally. So that demand has collapsed
Yeah.
always in
They'll
Q1. I
pick
don't
up on
think
that.
that'll ever die. Although more recently hasn't been as bad because of they're building so many extra cars that like it hasn't mattered. But I do think that seasonal pullbacks will always be the end of. But it's funny. My kid was at school and their teacher was talking about that. They're like, oh, Tesla, like
Okay.
they can't sell their cars, and basically they were talking about this in Q1. I'm like, oh my god, really? Q1 demand cliff in school? You know, you missed in school. um,
That's why they need
yeah,
people like you. Thank you, Earl. This is you've
yeah,
shared a lot of very intelligent comments, and it made me think a lot about the Bears. I'm glad that you were there in 2018. I'm so incredibly impressed with the Frunk puppy. I make fun of it. Like I said earlier, it sounds silly, but really, it has made a difference to the transition to electrical vehicles. You've tapped onto something very big. You're very, very, very funny on Twitter. But I'll give you one last chance here. I'm very impressed with you, I gotta say, but you gotta convince me to switch from Team Kemp to Team Earl and maybe even become a super follower for you. But I'll give you this one last chance. Say something that impresses me in the last 5.
Oh my gosh, I can't. That's too much pressure. Just super
Of
follow
course you
Kim.
can't.
That's fine.
You're
It's
not as good
okay.
as Kim. Kim would have come up with something very funny and sharp and witty. So there you go.
Look, if you super followed me, I'd be happy
Oh,
for you. Like it would be a good day for you to be able to do that.
you'd be happy for me.
Yes, it would be like, oh my gosh, congratulations.
That's okay. That's close. That's close. That's funny. Oh, okay. Thank you, Earl. Very, very much
Yep,
appreciate this. Lots of good
definitely.
information. Again, it's very. I think I promised at the beginning, it's going to be fun, but also going to be very inspiring. And I think you did that for me. Thank you very much, Earl. Everybody, please follow him. His Twitter handle again. I don't know why it's at 28 delays later. What? Where did you come up with that? 28
Oh, it was
delays later.
sarcastic because I was following Elon as we were waiting for the Model 3. And, like 28 days later, that zombie movie is like my favorite zombie movie. But like it's a Tesla account. So it's like 28 delays later. Like they keep delaying things. So I've always been very sarcastic
Okay,
about Tesla. So I'm not surprised that things are delayed. But I didn't want to keep that, but I didn't
gotcha.
expect to have like a following. But here I am.
No. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we all think it's 28 days later, but it's actually
I
28
know.
delays later.
Yes.
But it hasn't stopped the hundreds of thousands of people, whatever, 80,000
No.
followers you have. So,
Yep. I know. I don't know what's wrong with people.
oh. All right, everybody, super follow Earl. You're going to love it. Congratulations. Okay. Thank you so much, Earl. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.